The Body Snatchers.
We're counting down the top 10 most extreme body snatchers in the animal kingdom to find out who uses the most terrifying tactics. You can run, but you can't hide when body snatchers are taken to the most extreme.
Earth is a planet of extremes. Extreme places. And extreme animals. But some animals are more extreme than others. Join us as we count down to find the most unusual and the most extraordinary on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. Number 10.
Hollywood has always loved the idea of creatures from outer space that land on Earth and take over the bodies of unsuspecting humans.
Elizabeth, wake up! Catch you when you sleep.
After all, can you think of anything more terrifying than having your body taken over by another life form? Yet it happens all the time in the natural world. Welcome to the real-life invasion of the body snatchers. Our story begins with an animal that's found very close to home. The first victim in the countdown is the mosquito. Every mosquito that's ever bitten you has been female. She needs a meal of blood to nourish her developing eggs, so she's an expert at hunting humans. And sometimes, she's also doing the dirty work of our first contender. That's because the mosquito's not the only fly wanting to get under our skin. Enter the botfly. One species lays its eggs inside humans, but unlike the mosquito, it's too large and too loud to sneak up on us. There's a good chance we'd swat away a botfly that got too close for comfort. So, the female botfly needs to find another way to get under our skin. She becomes a body snatcher. The botfly gets a mosquito to transport her eggs to a human incubator. She catches a female mosquito in midair by clamping onto the smaller fly's wings. After the botfly attaches her eggs to the mosquito, she releases the helpless bloodsucker. When the mosquito recovers from the shock, she continues her search for blood. Once she lands on a human, the person's body heat causes the botfly eggs to hatch. What happens next is nothing less than your worst nightmare. When this woman found an abscess on her head, she wasn't concerned until it began to wiggle. Her doctor discovered the lump was actually the botfly larva living in a hollow chamber just beneath her skin. Luckily, the treatment is simple. Simply cover the hole with petroleum jelly to suffocate the larva and extract the body with a pair of tweezers the next day. If left alone, after about 8 weeks, the larva would drop out to burrow into the soil, where it would transform into an adult botfly. The botfly is only number 10 in the countdown because this body snatcher releases its prey unharmed. Still to come, are animals that take control of their victim for much longer, and sometimes with fatal results.
Number 9.
Our next contender is easy to see on the plains of Africa. The distinctive black and white stripes instantly identify the zebra. The huge wild herds roaming the grasslands are actually made up of many small groups. The most common is a family unit made up of one stallion and his harem of up to 6 mares and their foals. Then there are groups of young bachelors, each wanting to start a family group of his own. To do so, he'll have to become a body snatcher and steal a mare from a family group. However, he'll get some assistance, because in this case, his victim wants to be stolen. When a young mare prepares to breed for the first time, she advertises her availability months before she's ready to mate. That wide grin is a beacon for male zebras. It's a stressful time for the stallion of the family group. He has to chase off potential suitors to maintain his harem. While the stallion is tied up in battle, another bachelor gets his chance to abduct the family group's young mare. While the dominant stallion may not like losing a mare, she's more than happy to run off with a young stud. If young mares didn't attract suitors to steal them away, they'd probably never leave, and inbreeding would eventually weaken the population. It's the only time in the countdown that becoming the victim of a body snatcher is actually good for the health.
If only the body snatchers coming up next were as gentle as our first 2 contenders, then we wouldn't have to worry about a mother that loves a baby. To number 8.
In Africa, the next contender in our countdown of extreme body snatchers slaughters 2 million victims every day. Fall asleep in front of a column of driver ants, and you're in big trouble. A colony contains up to 20 million hungry mouths, so anything that gets in their way is eaten. Which is why this sausage fly may have made the mistake of his life. The column of female workers tear off his wings, but he isn't killed. Often called a sausage fly thanks to his swollen abdomen, he's actually a male driver ant, the biggest ant in the world. The wings were just to help him travel to a new colony. Driver ants are number 8 in the countdown because they kidnap the male and keep him captive until a young queen is ready to mate. Having your wings ripped off may seem strange, but all kinds of animals do crazy things when they're in love. Sausage fly's wings. Being dismembered by a horde of 20 million female ants is a strange way to meet a mate. But at least the male gets a happy ending, unlike the victims of the body snatchers coming up in the countdown.
Number 7.
Our countdown of the most extreme body snatchers heads back to a time when it was hard to find good sailors. That's why the captain would go in search of volunteers. Landlubbers would be kidnapped, even if it meant rendering them senseless with alcohol, drugs, or a sharp blow to the head. On the west coast of the United States, any man alone in cities like San Francisco, Portland, and Seattle could wake up on a boat heading across the Pacific. Since a city in China sounded like a suitably exotic destination, the victims were said to be shanghaied. A similar thing happens in the natural world, only the members of this motley crew have 6 legs. Swarming in to number 7 in the countdown are Amazon ants. This is a raiding party, and the Amazon scouts have located a colony of black Formica ants. The Amazons quickly crush the heads of any resistance. Leaving a trail of destruction behind them, the body snatchers quickly head underground in search of buried treasure. They're number 7 in the countdown because they forcefully enter the Formica ants' brood chamber, stealing their eggs and cocoons. Then they head back to their own nest with a booty of Formica babies. The Amazons don't have to guard their shanghaied victims because newly hatched Formica ants become imprinted with the odors of their captors. And then they're put to work, cleaning the nest and feeding the body snatchers. The Amazon ants' massive jaws are only good for 2 things, killing and kidnapping. So the emerging Formica ants are forced to forage for food and regurgitate it to colony members of both species. They spend their lives as slaves, but at least they're kept alive, unlike the victims of the body snatchers coming up in the countdown.
Number 6.
Bursting in to number 6 in the countdown is the emperor penguin. At the end of the summer, they waddle up to 50 miles to find their breeding grounds. They're looking for a site that's sheltered from the wind because emperor penguins are the only animals that breed during the Antarctic winter. In this icy wilderness, there's no nest material. So, after laying a single egg, the female rests it on her feet. However, Dad does the incubating, so the egg is carefully transferred to his toes. The female then sets off on a long trek back to the sea to feed. It will be 2 months before she sees her baby again. The male is left balancing the egg on his toes in the middle of the world's worst winter. Meanwhile, the female is far away in the open ocean, building up her energy reserves by feasting on fish and krill. But she's still producing large amounts of the parental hormone prolactin. This drives her maternal instincts and could be the reason she's so keen to make the long trek back to her baby with a belly full of food. Unfortunately, keeping chicks alive in this extreme environment isn't easy. When this mom returns, she discovers that her newborn chick is dead. For most birds, birds, this would cause the mother's prolactin levels to drop, but not the female emperor. Driven on by her hormone-fueled mothering instincts, the female looks for a baby to nurture, even if it belongs to another female. Somewhere under this pile of bodies, a baby penguin is being snatched away from its birth parents. The emperor penguin is number 6 in the countdown because she'll kidnap a chick to replace her own. Unfortunately, this chick is doomed. The body snatching lasts for no more than a week before the seemingly distraught parent abandons her stolen baby. And in this frozen wilderness, an orphan chick can die in minutes. It's a tragic story, and one that's repeated all over the world thanks to body-snatching humans. According to the Wildlife Conservation Society, the illegal wildlife trade is a $6 billion a year global industry. And what's worse, they estimate that up to 80% of tropical birds die during transport for the exotic pet trade. That's why bird smugglers have taken to transporting black market eggs instead, according to Director of Science at Australia's Museum Victoria, Les Christidis.
They'll bring the eggs in either stuffed in a pouch in their underpants or in their bra or something like that. Customs people approach them and say, we think you're smuggling in eggs in that, and all they do is they just smash the eggs. So what you've got is a pouch full of smashed eggs. But what we can do is, from those smashed eggs, just get, little bits of sample, check the DNA, and find out what it is. And we've been able to work out, in cases, what's been smuggled out of the country and what's been smuggled into the country.
Parrots are a prime target for these black market body snatchers. So before you adopt a parrot, you need to know where it's from, according to Lee Schoen, curator of birds at the Houston Zoo.
One thing you want to do if you're going to buy a parrot is make sure you're getting it from a reputable breeder here in the United States. A lot of folks in the United States raise parrots as pets, and therefore they're not being smuggled in from the wild. They make for a much better pet, and therefore you're not endangering the birds in the wild.
For emperor penguin chicks, the biggest threat is not from human bird smugglers, but from hormone-filled females of their own species. It's a sad story of misplaced love. However, it's not the last time we'll see the fatal consequences of a body snatcher at work.
While our last two Number 5.
Our countdown of the most extreme body snatchers continues with a mother's worst nightmare. After all the hard work of building a nest and successfully laying an egg, along comes our next contender. An unguarded nest is an open invitation for a cuckoo. This female is raiding the nest of poor little reed warblers. It steals one of their eggs and replaces it with one of her own. The cuckoo's egg, sitting at the front of the nest, is so well disguised that it fools the reed warbler into believing that her family is safe and sound. But as soon as it hatches, the cuckoo chick moves into action. It pushes out all the competition. Then it literally eats the parents out of house and home. The reed warblers end up feeding a baby that's 10 times heavier than they are.
Number 4.
Earlier in the countdown, we observed body-snatching ants in action. But now the tables are turned. This time, they're the victims. Red fire ants were accidentally released into America in the 1930s. And now there are literally billions of colonies across the southern states. Farmers loathe the pests, but have been unable to stem the tide of advancing ants. But now, there's one animal that stands in their way. The U.S. Department of Agriculture is rearing huge numbers of pinhead-sized body snatchers. Swarming in to number 4 in the countdown are phorid flies. These adult flies are the fire ant's worst nightmare. They hover just out of reach, waiting for an opportunity to dart in and inject an egg into the ant's body. After the egg hatches, the little maggot starts eating its way into the ant's head. Soon, the ant becomes a brainless zombie. But it gets worse. Eventually, the maggot secretes enzymes which cause the ant's head to drop off. Safe inside this gruesome chamber, the maggot pupates and emerges as an adult fly, ready to go hunting again. These tiny body snatchers are an effective weapon in the battle against one of America's most devastating invaders.
If you thought flies inside a pest and cuckoos inside a nest, Number 3.
The next time you're at a party, remember that someone could be hiding the next contender in our countdown of extreme body snatchers, and they may not even know it's lurking inside their body. It's estimated that 1/4 of the world's population is infected with some kind of parasitic worm. There are 5,000 species of tapeworms alone. But don't go thinking that these parasites just sit quietly in the gut, stealing food and minding their own business. Research has shown that to complete their life cycle, some parasites take over the body they've snatched. And it doesn't matter if the tapeworm is 60 feet long, or in the case of our next contender, measures less than 1/4 of an inch. The hydatid tapeworm is one of the smallest in the world and lives inside the wolf. It doesn't cause much harm as it happily feeds in the gut. Every 14 days, the tapeworm releases the last segment of its body. Inside are about 1,000 eggs that pass out with the feces. When the segment ruptures, the eggs are scattered by wind and water. Most will perish, unless they can take over the body of their next host. If a browsing moose swallows an egg, it's in big trouble. After hatching, a small hooked embryo burrows its way through the gut wall. It's picked up by the bloodstream and transported to the liver or lungs, where it transforms into a cyst. If there's no bone in the way, the cyst continues to grow until it contains up to 15 quarts of fluid and millions of little tapeworms. The huge cyst causes terrible damage, tearing through the moose's bronchial tubes and blood vessels. The hydatid tapeworm is number 3 in the countdown because it may even release a scent in the breath of its victim, possibly acting as a magnet for a hungry wolf. The weakened moose is in trouble, but that's good news for the parasite. The tapeworm can't complete its life cycle until it gets back to a wolf, so it turns its host into an easy target. When wolves sweep down on the herd of moose, they're more likely to target the sluggish, wheezing individual. The infected moose may even smell weak thanks to the parasite's odor. The end result is that the tapeworm gets back to where it wants to be, inside the body of a wolf. This horrible body snatcher just uses the moose as a vehicle to find its way back home. Our next contender uses similar tactics, but with even more terrifying consequences.
Number 2.
Our next victim is a small freshwater fish called a stickleback. It has lightning-fast reflexes to catch small prey in the water and to avoid the sharp beaks of hungry birds. The stickleback has no trouble keeping out of trouble, unless it encounters our next contender. The only way to find the body snatcher is to go fishing for sticklebacks and look for the one with the grossly swollen belly. This poor fish is infected with a tapeworm that's almost its own size. This parasite is number 2 in the countdown because it's found a way to manipulate the bodies of not one, but 2 different animals. The tapeworm is found not only inside the stickleback, but also in the digestive systems of fish-eating birds like herons. Safe inside the gut, the adult tapeworm releases eggs that are carried out with the feces and into the water. After hatching, the microscopic body snatcher is a tempting treat for a small crustacean. This copepod is the favorite food of the stickleback. And to make sure it gets eaten, the parasitic body snatcher changes the crustacean's behavior, causing the infected copepod to swim erratically. It's now an easy target for a hungry stickleback. Inside the fish, the tapeworm grows bigger and bigger. But to complete its life cycle, the parasite needs to get back inside the bird. So, it changes the behavior of the stickleback. To see what happens, all you need is a tank and a very fake heron. First up is an uninfected stickleback. At the first sign of trouble, it dashes for the shelter of the pondweed. But when there's a body snatcher on board, an infected stickleback stays out in the open as a tempting target. By changing the fish's behavior, the tapeworm makes the stickleback stay out in the open. Thanks to its internal body snatcher, the fish soon becomes bird bait. Back inside the heron, the tapeworm's life cycle is now complete. It's taken control to make sure that it travels from heron to copepod to stickleback and back to the heron. It's terrifying to think of your body being under the control of another animal. And yet, we're the target of the most extreme body snatcher in the countdown.
We've seen the 9 contenders. They've all taken control of other creatures' bodies. Only one animal is a more terrifying body snatcher. It's number 1, and it's coming up next on Animal Planet's Number 1.
You ready? Yum.
The most extreme body snatcher in the countdown lives inside cats. It's so small, it can fit inside a single cell in the cat's intestine. It's the parasite called toxoplasma. The adult stage releases eggs that are passed out with the cat's droppings and then scattered by the wind and rain. Once down in the dirt, the eggs can remain viable for 18 months, just waiting for an unsuspecting victim. A scavenging rat is the perfect host. Safe inside a warm body, the toxoplasma eggs hatch and work their way into every organ in the rat's body, especially the brain. Here, the microscopic parasite forms dormant cysts that remain viable for the lifetime of the rat. But to complete its life cycle, the parasite has to wait for a cat to come along and eat the rat. Since rats have a deep fear of cats, this could take some time. So the impatient toxoplasma parasite takes control and speeds up the process. Scientists conducted experiments in which rats were given a choice of nest boxes sprayed with one of 4 smells: water, rat urine, rabbit urine, and cat urine. An uninfected rat timidly steers clear of the cat smell, preferring the safety of familiar scents it associates with home. But when the rat had toxoplasma in its brain, the rodent fearlessly explores all smells before settling as close to the cat urine as possible. The microscopic body snatcher in the rodent's brain makes the rat like the smell of cats. For the rat, that has fatal consequences. But for the parasite, it's the best way to get back to the host, thereby completing its life cycle. By taking control of the rodent, the body snatcher travels from cat to rat and back to cat. But what makes this parasite really scary is that it doesn't just live in rats. All kinds of grazing animals accidentally ingest the eggs of toxoplasma. Like rats, the parasite lodges in the brain and muscle, where it can be passed to any predator, including us. According to the Centers for Disease Control, more than 60 million Americans are infected with the parasite, usually from eating undercooked meat. Once infected, the parasite stays with you for the rest of your life, buried within your muscle and nerve tissue. And there's growing evidence the Toxoplasma parasite affects our behavior too. A scientist in Prague took blood samples from blood donors and tested them for toxoplasmosis. Then they were asked to perform a test to assess the speed of their reactions. The results were subtle yet conclusive. Subjects with the Toxoplasma parasite in their brains had slower reaction times. Then the scientists analyzed blood samples taken from car accident victims. The results were startling. Drivers with Toxoplasma were more than twice as likely to be involved in a traffic accident than those who were parasite-free. No wonder scientists are investigating other side effects of having a body snatcher inside our head. The Toxoplasma parasite nests in our brain in microscopic cysts, immune to most medical treatments. For decades, people thought Toxoplasma had no effect on us, but now the parasite is changing their minds. And that's why this tiny body snatcher really is the most extreme.